pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Meeting come to order. First item on the agenda, approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda has been approved. Public comment. Public comment. Then we'll go into the approval of the minutes for February 17th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the minutes as printed, say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We
Move to approve the claims and authorize the auditor to issue checks.
Second the motion.
First and second, any discussion on the claims? Hearing none, all in favor of the claims as printed, say aye.
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 And the chair votes aye.
Move to approve Kate Schmidt and Gina Mendoza.
We have two new employees, Kate Schmidt for the auditor's office, and CBS has Gina Mendoza. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions on those? So Kate's going to be doing the new payroll. Accounts payroll.
Yep.
Yep. And then Gina will be,
CBS director,
okay,
full-time.
fantastic. All in favor of those two additions, say aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Okay. And then we have master agreements that we have with, want to talk about that, shall we?
This is actually CBS. And CBS's last master agreement, we had a 5-year lease, and 2 years ago, we renewed it for 2 more years. So we were at 7 years on the same machine, and they won't go any longer. So we need to renew with a new machine. Currently, we're paying $107.01 a month. This is gonna go to $128.90, an additional $263 per year, but don't really have a choice.
Would there be any flexibility if we would get a different copier? Sometimes those companies reduce the monthly payments if you get new equipment. Is there?
So like try another company.
Or just get it up, renew through them? They didn't discuss that as an option.
We looked at a few models. This was the cheapest we could get. So, and it looks very similar to what we have. There's no complicated printing down there. This isn't like printing on election cards or things like that. So this was what we could get. We do sometimes have overages, but I think every office does. I know the board, myself, auditor's office do. And you pay the price that's listed on the back for those overages, and we just try and watch how many overages we have in color.
And how old was the other lease?
It's supposed to just be a 5-year, but we extended it to more. It was 7 years. 7 years we've been on the same machine.
So $21 increase over 7 years. Move to approve and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
First and second, all approval, say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Board, chair votes aye. Committee updates. One thing I did was Bremer County Naturalist group had their fundraising. That's the fundraising arm of Bremer County Conservation. And they had it last Thursday right before the snowstorm. So anybody who's interested in our parks should be looking at the Bremer County Nature Society, Natural Society. So it's a good group. And then also I talked to Pat Grassi about taxes on Friday. So
I had safety meeting Thursday morning. We'll need to talk to you about like our our egress plan, like response plan out of this room from last year. It sounds like that was started at the end of last year. Worked with Cassandra on it too. And then last night I had a virtual meeting for Community Action, Northeast Iowa Community Action. We had somebody from Thrive Iowa from the state office kind of explain where we're at with that rollout of Thrive that Nicole from Community Action has undertaken. And then the Woolen Mill, which is a 15-unit housing unit in Decorah that's in pretty bad shape.
What's the name?
Woolen Mill. It's a very old building downtown, 15 units. Last year, when we had a structural engineer come in and look at some of the structural deficiencies, we had an estimate of $2.7 million to fix the building. It's just cost prohibitive. Found a developer up there that is willing to take that on, willing to buy the property if we would package it with a dual unit from Kelmer. That's a housing unit. We approved that the exchange will happen in August, but their goal is to save the building and preserve it, but it takes a lot of maneuvering. We have to get out of like the LURA agreement to be able to offload it. Looks like everything will fall in place and happen, but get rid of a liability for Community Action. Just don't have the resources to maintain the building. So if at some point during that transition and the repairs, we had agreed to help with where it could with like housing realignment, to temporarily move housing and things like that. So even though we wouldn't have that obligation, we have the staff to be able to do that, so we'll work through that. That's all I had.
I had emergency management last Tuesday night, and we were introduced to the new puppy, and approved the bylaws as presented the meeting before. Completed approval of the budget after having been notified there was publication and no public comments. We'd had a fairly long conversation about the $20,000 state grant that is and isn't and might be, and so the understanding is that we'll follow the law and not tax for what we don't need to, but at the same time, if we can't call it a revenue, then clearly you can't call it a revenue if it's not a possibility to be a revenue. That probably makes as much sense as it made to everybody over there. There was a great deal of confusion. I think Aaron had spoken to you about it, and there was some questions about whether or not you could call it a revenue if you weren't actually expecting to get it, but we don't know if we're going to get it or not. So the understanding with the group is that we won't tax for 1 penny more than what we need to tax for. So, and then I had intercog exec. The only thing different from the normal meeting there is we did approve the fiscal year 27 cost allocation plan, which is necessary to get federal dollars to use for some of the grant matching dollars to keep our county fees and city fees lower. And then I had the RTA meeting at intercog, and there was a general discussion about the impact of the property tax cut for those over 65 years old. One of the cities, I believe it was Independence, indicated that they stand to lose about $750,000 from that legislation, and don't know how they would make that back up. And then there's a resolution 7437 in the federal government that talks somewhat about taxation and road building and transportation that you're encouraged to take a look at, and not a lot of detail with that. So HR 7437. That's it.
Great. Okay. We'll hold for a couple minutes till 9:15, and we'll start talking about budget stuff.
Morning, Darius.
Morning, everybody. Morning. What's everybody? Everybody's down here today. Thank you.
Funerals this week. We were very pleased that there were both donations, because we didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
I would have really sucked, you know, especially for the Saturday one, because it was cold.
30-mile-an-hour wind all weekend.
Hey, Darius,
Yeah.
who's the clerk report now?
Jessica Fox. Yeah, why?
Well, I sent her that library thing, and I sent it to her generic box.
Okay.
So,
Jessica Fox. By the way, I love the purple shirt. It's nice.
thanks.
Taking up your grades and it's, lovely colors.
Thank you.
Sure. Next up is Bubbins over this thing.
Yeah.
Right. No, this is not cheaper. Right. See, I didn't even go through. Yes, perfect. Password box. Based on it.
All right. Morning.
Yeah. That'll be the next class that we have on this.
It's good work. I know.
I'm pushing almost 50.
That's gonna be great.
I'm only 46. 46? Yeah, I'm not pushing 50. I'll take that.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, wow. Mighty kind of. Just got some right here. Thank you.
There's a benefit coming in from out of state that was stolen.
I'm just supposed
And,
Yeah,
so we didn't have that.
Me too. You guys are on your, I'm saying.
So they didn't do it.
You can tell your words are, they had me signing on a few of those
So
ones
they-
from the last.
just to keep it-
The competition that ended yesterday.
Funny, you
I
guys,
got
when they got him.
I do love, you guys are great at word search.
It was one place.
I love good
I'm gonna
word
call the
search.
lieutenant down there to see what happened, because they should at least let us know. We've got a lot of people asking. They got custody. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've heard all kinds of, I don't know what's happening. Church. There's the cars that had rifles within the church and that. I don't know.
All right, we'll get started. Back up. We do have a resolution approving the salary increase for the Bremer County Sheriff for FY '27. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. We'll discuss this. This is what we talked about. And once again, it's going to be based on the police chief base salary from Waverly plus a 2.8% increase. And this is
Actually ended up being a 30% increase off of that.
3%? Okay. Any discussion?
My question, Sheriff and I were talking quite a bit last week about just budget allocations, and Dan, did you make one thing I had suggested is, would you be able to find this within your budget, or are we gonna have to tax for it additionally?
Um, Well, if you take all the wages and try and take out of the budget, I've looked back through all of them, and, with the money, and again, I know you're looking at the money that's been given back at the end of the year, I'm getting the feeling that I should spend it, because that's the feeling I'm getting. I don't, because if we need something, we do it. Like last year, we did a couple of projects that were gonna be capital equipment otherwise. But I really don't wanna, like, I was looking back for the food even, and we went over one year 7,900. This year I have 6,000 less than what we know it's gonna be. So you take that out of it. And again, a lot of this money that's given back, we would have been a deputy that had left or retired before we got another deputy hired. The one year we were short 6 full-time jailers. Again, if you take that out, I just don't wanna, I've never amended my budget, and I understand what you guys are trying to do. I'm not trying to make it, so you have to tax for it or whatever you gotta do. But I just hate to take it out, and then we get into like May, and I wouldn't think we would, but you don't know. If, with the increase, we probably will get more, I think, with the federal too, but again, the food costs, if we get more inmates, the food costs are gonna be higher.
Understood. No, we had challenged other offices in past years to find it within their budget to fund it and not increase the ask, so that was all just, we thought you had that ability or not. So you've done an analysis on it, so I appreciate that.
One thing I want to point out as well is, one of the things that you're proposing maybe to do today is to move the health insurance to one department so that it's not part of budgets when there's extra dollars, maybe somebody doesn't need the health insurance and whatnot. That's what Dan is trying to explain, that, he's got those gaps of employment and stuff, and he's not just taking those dollars because he's got them and spending them. So I guess I applaud Dan for not doing that, because that's what gets us in the situation that we're in, that we may end up taking health insurance out of budgets.
Well, and honestly, that holdover fund at the end of the year, I've always had dollars that I gave back at the end of the year also, and I don't think that you've ever abused that, and I also appreciate it. I would remind everybody that has never been in the sheriff's position that you're only one homicide away from depleting all of those funds in a fiscal year, because back when we had the homicides, we had a tremendous amount of overtime, and I think history would tell us that we didn't really give back any money in those fiscal years because it was there to spend, and had we not had it in there, we would have had to have come over and asked for a amendment as well. So I don't struggle with how things are being done that way. It's just a unique, it's a little bit like the road department, and there are some dollars there that you could ask the same thing for, but you just don't know. And when you got offices that you don't know, or departments, then you better have planned for it a little bit, so.
I just gotta look back at the medical insurance thing, and Corey and I talked about that a little bit, like in 2022, because he went back for 5 years, so we were $380,000 for the Department 05, which is the jail and the deputies. And then in 23, it went down by 47,000. And then 24 went back up to what it was before at 332. And then it went up 43,000, because again, when you have 34 employees in that area, one person, if they move from a single to a family, or you hire somebody that's on a single plan or on their parents' plan, and then you have 20,500. it's gotta go back in that you're spending. So you're gonna have it fluctuate, and I've just never, I know that money's there, but I've never spent it, obviously, because it's there for a reason. It's a great benefit to have.
Good. Any more discussion? This be resolution
26-21.
All in favor of resolution 2621, say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So we have approved that, so thank you, Dan. So
Thank you.
hopefully, this, we'll end this, and hopefully we'll see what happens down the Des Moines, back to blue, see if that stays the same or it gets modified.
I appreciate it.
Good. Next item, review of the wage increases, and this is just one department that, we've had, it was optics on last year, and, this year, there's some increases that are maybe a little bit above normal, so we just wanted to have Barb just kind of have transparency, and Barb want to come up here and just kind of talk to us about your research.
Okay, I received an email last Tuesday afternoon that you were gonna review, Department 03. I think because of the, higher than, our standard increases for the proposed fiscal year 27. I did my own analysis, on this, what I could do within a week. I solicited information from the counties 5 above, the counties 5 below in regards to population, and also information from our bordering counties, just to see where we stand for justification. I was actually surprised, I guess. It kind of turned around my thought a little bit on this, with the results on this. I did send you some spreadsheets. The first spreadsheet being the timeline. So kind of the timeline history from July 1st of 2024 up through what is proposed for fiscal year 27. So you can see what the treasurer's office had gotten for increases, normally a little bit above the standard increases. Typically higher than the 3% or the 2.8% that we're receiving this year. So I just put a little history out there for you. Then I also included the data from the 13 counties for the treasurer position, the deputy's position, and the clerk's position. Put them together, did an average, and that's what kind of puts into perspective that these proposed increases for fiscal year 27 are in alignment with those 13, or actually Bremer County is included in the 13, with the other 12 counties that I received data from. There's 2 counties I did not receive the data from. I put this together late afternoon, so this is as much as I have, what I could get within a week's worth of time. So this really, you look at the averages, you look at the average years of the clerks and the deputies. What is proposed from the spreadsheet that I received actually is in alignment with the data that I put together over the course of this past week. You
Good.
have all of the numbers. I didn't just summarize. You have everything, every line item. The only thing to add, just kind of on the mix-up of the counties, we have 2 counties where everybody within the department is considered a deputy. And we have 1 county where everybody within the county is considered a clerk. Majority have a combination of deputies and clerks. The majority have more clerks than deputies, but we fall within, when it comes to the composition, we fall within the guidelines of these other 12 counties as well. So it gives you a little bit more information, I guess, if you weren't sure what you wanted to do for clear approval or not. The wage analysis for workforce development just kind of gave an overall range of 45,000 to 48,000. That's more of a clerk, I would consider a clerk position than a deputy position. when it comes to that. Deputies have the higher wage over the clerk in all of these counties. So this wage analysis was very, very generic, did not really look at the individual positions within the department. But makeup of the treasurers fits in with the other counties. And the proposed increases for these positions are within alignment, my feeling.
That is good.
I don't think anybody denied, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong in this statement, that last year when we had our disagreements about how to get here, no one denied that they were underpaid. And so this is a good way to get there. I
Yes.
guess I'm happy that we did the study so that we can support what we're doing for those big increases this year. It would have been nice if, like I suggested last year, if we could have done it over a 3-year period, but this should get us where we need to be, and therefore,
Yeah.
problem solved, right?
I believe so. I'll just speak to the fact that, the stepstone approach versus 1 year, I guess there's, some perceived cost savings of not having the increases over years and then just doing it all at once. That doesn't rectify the past of having those stepstones for the employees, and there's been, different employees step into those roles, and so I'm pleased to hear that the information, this is, I was aware of the background. But yeah, that speaks, going back to my submission in my budget packet that had all of this kind of out in the front. And so just having the supportive information from another viewpoint that supports what I submitted originally is nice to hear. So thank you.
Yeah, probably from my standpoint is, I think we need to get HR, Barb, a little bit more ingrained in this process of salary increases and just reviewing it to make sure that we do have a third party look at things, make sure that they're consistent from a larger level, but also across our own platform, Bremer County. So that's something that I see that we should be doing.
I agree, Bob, and I think that it gives us good supportive data for going to the public about it, because when we attend the state legislators' Saturday morning sessions, they're getting beat up about ever-rising property taxes, and they're talking about doing major changes. And therefore, that sometimes falls into our thought process and decision-making. So having that data and having a third party does help us make better conclusions. So.
And after the start of the fiscal year, I'd like to go through and take a look at auditors' offices and recorders' offices. And then beyond that, maybe go to some of the non-elected offices and do the same type of analysis once the new fiscal year 27 information is fresh in there.
And will you still be using the workforce development study to make those comparisons, or?
Yeah, I would look back and use that and just see how my numbers compared to the workforce numbers.
But you'll get more recent information too.
Get more recent information with the increases. I know I look at the ISAC salary survey quite a bit, but that basically gives information on the elected official or department head. When it comes to staffing, there's really no detailed information on staffing. I put the numbers in for Bremer County into that survey, and I do add a lot more detail than what appears when that survey is summarized. But I had a lot of cooperation when I reached out for information. A lot of people were really quick with it, and so if I can do this, continue with the elected offices and then work on some of the non-elected offices throughout the year and just kind of see where
Prepare
we're
us
at.
for FY28.
Yes.
Okay. I think that'd be a good move to continue. And now that we got our salary study, we feel that we're in a good location. Let's stay at a good location. So,
But across all departments, that's the thing I see here is like this spreadsheet that was handed out a couple weeks ago was put a lot of scrutiny on that office, and I mean Barb did the work here to determine that those wages were justified. But I mean that information Adam had already put together in this booklet, so I mean this is the information out of that booklet. It matches what Barb sent us, so as long as we're using that scrutiny across all departments, I'm happy to see that.
I would submit one thing that everybody in this room is gonna have to be aware of going forward is that if the legislative processes that are being discussed all get accomplished, there's gonna have to be some very difficult decisions at the city and county levels. There's hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of gonna be shortfalls in city and county governments. And one of the variables that the three of us and Cassandra all need to look at in the budgeting process is the ability to pay. And if the taxes aren't coming in, for instance, I will throw out, I attended another meeting and one city said that they stand to lose about $700,000 in tax revenue based on simply the proposal that those over 65 don't have to pay property taxes or pay less property taxes. Where could Bremer County come up with that kind of revenue shortfall in a one-year time period without cutting people? It's impossible. So please keep that in mind. And you guys are people too, so talk to your legislators and talk to people. At the same time, I'm sick and tired of my property taxes skyrocketing too. They're all getting totally out of hand. And we have to collectively do something to try to figure out how to fix it. So.
Great. So this is a good exercise, and you can continue on with other department elected officials and more for FY '28 information as we start our budgeting next time. So, great. Thanks, Barb.
Very good.
Okay, we kind of already started this discussion of health insurance from individual departments. So
I'm gonna move to have Cassandra work on moving the health cost for the departments to one fund. Did that make it clear?
That's a
So
motion.
one department. The fund is already gonna stay the same. It's always been the general.
Correct,
supplemental.
one department into that fund.
Okay. We have first, we have a second.
A second for discussion.
Okay, discussion. So let's start on
Okay,
discussion.
so I gave you a spreadsheet that showed how much would be moved. This is not gonna affect funds that are other than general fund, general supplemental, and rural basic. All of the insurance out of those get paid out of the general supplemental. So anyone like county engineer, health department, CVS, they have their own fund. Insurance is gonna stay where it is. It's not being paid by the general supplemental. I want you to take a look at the amount that would be being allocated to just one department versus spread over the various departments. And I want you to also think about whether or not this is something you wanna do, as this is really a true cost of that department. And so you're pulling that back, and so it's looking like a sheriff's office hates to pick on you, but you do have the higher budget when it comes to the health insurance as far as this area goes. Landon may beat you other ways. It's gonna reduce his budget by a little over 472,000 just in his Department 5. Looking back on it, is it gonna look like, well, you just, really had some cost savings there? I don't know. I see the benefits of moving it to Department 41. It's not in individual budgets where they can use it to make up shortfalls or make up wages. But I also see the advantage of leaving it in the department so we know the true cost of what it costs to run that department. So
I've come across this like in doing a 20-year department ask history, that you've shared with me, and you see, for instance, you could see like when HR left the auditor's office, and you see a one-time decrease and then a reset, and so if you don't have that context when you're looking back at historical numbers, then you start to question why. I see a benefit to moving that out of there, to Dewey's point in the motion, but one other thing Cassandra and I had talked about is, and this would involve some legal review from Darius, but Cassandra had pointed out the idea of maybe just looking at the need after enrollment in May and June 1st, if we could condition our budget, and I don't know if we can, we need to look through the legalities of this, to only appropriate what the need is based on June 1st, based on health insurance sign-up, that budgets would not be allocated those healthcare dollars. So leave them in, so the true cost of running that office is there and reflected in the budget, but not appropriating the dollars as an allocation for the fiscal year that way. From a true budgeting standpoint, I like that because it's clean, everything's accounted for within that department, within that office. But the question remains within code if we could do that. Because as a supervisor, board of supervisors, we have bottom line authority, so we're approving that budget at the bottom line.
So, to the argument of moving it out of their budgets and having it in a, don't we already do that to a large extent with things like road graders and, not bad example, a Michigan out at the landfill, trucks at conservation, all the things that come out of 41, sheriff's cars, we already take those out of their
We
budget,
have
so what's the
capital
difference?
projects.
And for the purposes of auditing, we're still gonna need to show the true expense of our healthcare costs. And it's not gonna be that difficult to, at the end of the year, run a analysis. Okay, so the sheriff's office spent $400,000 for healthcare, the recorder spent $85,000. For the purposes of being transparent, it doesn't take any of that away. We can still have that information, it's just that it makes it cleaner in the budgeting process, the way I look at it, so.
It doesn't take it away, but it actually does when you're reporting on department. Department level, I'm not manipulating data at the end of the year to put it back into Dan's budget. Fund-wise, it's still in the same fund. So when I report to the state goes by fund and function. So they don't care about the department. So it's totally up to the three of you, how you want to look at it and how you want it reported so that you going forward can have a true measure of what each of these elected offices and departments cost. And yes, a report can be run at the end of the year to show you that this is how much Department 5 had in health insurance, because I'll be able to do it by function and or by person.
We could condition next year's budgets, we could show year-over-year increase essentially by adding that number back in. We could add a line to show that and reflect that. Like this year we had utilities, authority to pay utilities switch, and so that was manipulated to look like a savings in some offices, and when it added burden to one of Shelley's. I mean, so that's the same thing on a larger scale that's gonna happen here. So being able to clean that up from a budget purview.
Any other counties, have you talked to any other counties, how they approach this differently?
I have not. I know initially when we did this with the liability, property, vehicle insurance for, again, these funds, the only place that it came up where it might be an issue is with our cost reporting. And it's just because of the way they allocate a portion of Shelley's office, is part of that indirect cost, treasurer's office, my office. But they were able to kind of work around those numbers and still kind of estimate how much an allocation would be for Shelley's office, treasurer, myself. So again, that would be something they could do here, but again, we could actually come up with the specific dollars because it is tied to an actual employee.
But at the end of the year, you'd still be able to easily determine how many dollars were spent for each employee within
Yes.
those departments. It wouldn't
Yes.
be, I mean,
A lot easier than doing it on liability or that kind of stuff.
probably one case where computers have actually made life simpler. That doesn't always happen. I guess, other than a lot of work for you, try it for a year, try it for 2 years, and if it doesn't seem to be working out, then we could always revert back to doing it the way we're doing it. I think it has a lot of potential positives, but.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Sheriff Pickett, you have, what's your thoughts on this?
Okay, since mine is a large department office, the only thing that, again, if say the insurance that's going in, there's 20,500, and I have an employee that leaves, that money obviously stays there because I don't spend it. But then if I have somebody else that comes in that needs it, again, that money would be spent. There might be a gap between
Yep.
the hiring time. So I wasn't sure how you guys were looking at that. Like, so if you take it away on the fiscal year and you don't say when fiscal year somebody leaves or whatever, when you have that many employees, if you have two people that move from their parents to getting married, you're looking at $40,000 or $41,000 that wouldn't be budgeted if you wouldn't have it in there.
We still have to budget for it and have budget authority. The hope is that by consolidating that law of averages that we're doing to the guess in the larger departments like you, that we could tighten that a little bit, possibly tax less by consolidating. The money would still be there for the life-changing condition, the marriages, the replacement hires,
You mean
things
in the
like
fund
that.
that we're
But if
talking?
if we
Oh,
consolidated
yeah,
it, we would.
I'm cool.
But you would still have fund
100%.
available for any departmental
Right.
changes from staffing. Like,
Well, I'm 100% in favor of what you're talking about there. I thought if we left it as it is now, and you don't allow the money to go in that office for when the budget time comes and it changes, then the next person comes in and now you don't have it.
you would still have it. It's where instead of having 30, 40 some departments doing that guess of what it's going to
Right.
look like through the year, if we did it all into one.
No, I
hoping
totally
we
agree.
maybe
I'm
could tighten that
supportive
up
of
and
that.
not ask for any more than we would need.
That's why I was confused, I guess. Okay.
I think in fairness, we have 3 other elected officials and it will impact their budgets. We could at least ask that they have.
I can do that. Adam, you have any?
I'll just go in support of what the sheriff just said is, I truly believe that the, having it all in one fund, and as each month goes by, if a department has had it in there or it's been in that fund for those employees, Cassandra gets a very clear picture of, hey, this is what's being returned to the county or not being used as month goes by. So those unused months in one department are still in the overall fund for a situation where, I have an employee that says, that I hire, and they don't take the health insurance, but Dan has one that comes online and takes it. So there's a transfer there. So it just makes sense to have a lump sum. And so kind of taking that pre-budget year survey of how many employees do we think we're going to have and having a variance of adding maybe 4 employees on that aren't currently covered gives you a better budgetary picture, but that's really in Cassandra's wheelhouse. It just makes sense.
And I want to just clarify that it will have to still be by function. So, your function and Dan function, you're not in the same.
Correct.
So I can't just move money like that. Money will be available, but if you have employees the same as you do now that don't have insurance and they suddenly need insurance, that's where an amendment comes in. Whether it's done out of this department, which is fine, I can make the changes, or whether it's done out of your individual budgets. This board here has never said, hey, we're gonna start denying people insurance because it's
Right.
mid-year.
Right.
So I don't think that that's ever gonna be an issue. It's just whether or not we're gonna consolidate it into one department, and I'm okay with giving it a try. Sounds like you guys are wanting to see what this would look like, and we can try it for a year and
So I think the question that I would have is it easier to move money in that arrangement than to say, hey, I don't have it in my department, but Dan needs it? And it goes back into, preemptively goes into fund balance, but it requires a budget amendment to add into his. Is it easier the way that they're talking about going with it, or easier in the realm of budget amendment, even though it's technically in the overall county's budget because I'm not
it's
using it?
the same process
Okay.
either way. The only difference is it doesn't give individual departments or offices the flexibility to use it for anything other than health
Right.
insurance.
And that's where I would
because I
agree
will
that that's not
control
a
it rather than
Right.
each individual office.
Missy?
I don't have a problem either way. My budget is always, I have nothing to spare, nothing to gain.
Darius?
I'm cool beans either way.
Barb?
That's fine with me.
Shelley?
For trial of something on such a large scale, I think that there's a lot of work that goes into setting up these account numbers, tying all the account numbers. Cassandra can speak to better making that all work. I think it's a great deal of work, but, and we shouldn't have to control other offices by managing their health insurance on their behalf. But I can see it working either way. I think a simplistic version is if we need it and we don't, I always have budgeted low. If I need it, I know I can get a budget amendment. The one question I have, if it's all run by Department 41 and it has to move to a different function, is it still a part of a budget amendment? So it's a budget amendment either way, or
So it still is going to be by function. So if I'm function 9,000, the board is 9,000, I think you're 90-10. Dan is 1,000 all the way up to 1,540. Missy and Adam are in that 8 range, so is your elections. It's by function. So
does that require a budget amendment?
yes,
Yes, so it's a budget amendment both ways.
yes,
Both versions, that was the question.
yes.
Are you opposed to it being a trial basis?
I'm not opposed, it's just the initial setup of the account, putting the mask in place. The masks are already in place. It tells the accounting software, if I'm paid out of this account, where do you charge my health insurance? So there's already a mask there because if you're paid out of the general fund, it changes the general fund to general supplemental. So the masks are there, we just gotta change the mask so that it doesn't care what department, it's gonna change it over to Department 41. So, it's a little bit of legwork to begin with, but it's doable, it's more the thought process of, is this the right direction? Taking this control away from the elected offices and department heads. I don't have the answer there. It'll work either way.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna complicate your job a little bit and amend my motion to add the clause of, for fiscal year 27 with a review during the budgeting process a year from now.
Corey, are you okay with that?
I'll second his amendment.
So we're at final discussion. We're going to act on moving the health insurance from individual departments' budgets to the capital project insurance budget. That involves Fund 1 and 2 and 11 for a trial period of 1 year with the review next spring. Good. All clear? And then, as you talk to other finance directors and stuff like that, and we'd like to get some feedback from other counties. So, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Point of order first. Do we have to vote for the amendment first? And then, because I, just checking, Shelley, you're the person there.
It was a friendly amendment just to do that, so.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're doing it right.
So the friendly amendment, move health insurance from individual department budgets to capital projects insurance budgets for FY 27 with a review prior to FY 28. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Great. Thank you on that, and keep us aware of how things are going on that. Okay, FY '27 budgets. I know Nate has submitted something.
Nate is giving us information on the migration to Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Office 365. Those are not penciled in for today because I don't know which option you're going to go with. So I just need final direction from you.
He's recommending option one. I know he's not here. Meets all the current, option one. Provides the core cloud productivity and email services. Has a lower licensing cost. But he does recommend option one meets all current operational requirements and offers significantly more functionality than our existing on-prem setup by adding a dedicated security training platform. We maintain our security posture, which remains compliant. So I would lean towards Nate's recommendation.
I will factor in option one if that's what everybody
I would agree.
wants.
Other questions that we need to help you with?
So I gave you changes. Auditor's office has an individual that will be getting married, so there will be family insurance there. So I gave you that change. Emergency management, I went ahead and reduced county contribution by 20,000. And then we are, I don't know if you want to take it up now or after Landon, but we need to revisit the timeline of our courthouse remodel. Not as much of it is going to happen in FY '28 as I thought, so I had almost $1 million coming out of FY '28, and it's looking like it'll be closer to like that 350,000. So I'm gonna have to put more into FY '27's budget, so that will change that local option sales tax amount. But I think we just need to relook at that timeline. Corey's got one.
You got any comments on that, or?
Nope.
He's hiding in the corner there.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's gonna come out either way, the year doesn't really matter to me.
Okay.
Do you want to talk that now?
I didn't know if you wanted to go to Landon's 5-year program first.
He's not up yet.
Oh, he's not till 10.
I don't get that. So I put, based on the description last week, I just did a spreadsheet. One for Shelley too. You can run around. It's gonna be relative. So there's 4 different scenarios on this from our discussion last week. And looking, scenario A is a higher bond capacity. If we went back, redid a referendum to go to an $8.5 million to cover the cost. So the column below that $8.5 million in A still shows we'd have to pull a little bit out at the current. This is figuring on current cost of the project that was shown to us last week. About $184,000 would still have to come out of loss to cover the difference to get to what Myron presented last week. These are after you take out the remaining ARPA funds that are allocated to phase 1 costs. So you look at a bond cost down through there in a 20-year, you're about $650 a year bond repayment. The second column is kind of a fictitious number because it doesn't reflect anything else coming out of loss, but it shows like what the effect would be on a cumulative growth of loss outside of bond repayment based on current proceeds coming in on new laws. And then the next column over would be your running deficit. So I took a 4-year average since we've been done with the law center. We're spending on average on that 4-year, we're spending about $930,000 on out of lost into roads. Now that varies, it goes up and down depending on what Landon's program is. But just had to use an average to make this possible. So you get down to the end and you see over 20 years we would not be able to sustain that level by about $8 million. of funding. So we'd have a deficit. We'd have to cut back what our annual allocation is to roads. So then I went over scenario B and scenario C and scenario D all keep the 6.3 bond authority that we currently have and use varying amounts of lost or general fund to fund the gap, and run the same scenario down through. And what you'll see is the 2.2 million that we would bond for more, going from 6.3 to 8.5, 2.1 of that is eaten up just in interest. So basically borrowing 2.5 more to get $100,000 expendable cash. Because of the shorter, a lot of that is due to the 15-year versus 20-year, staying with the 6.3. And then the other column, when you look at road funding, we cut about $4 million of deficit in the road funding, so you can put about 200,000 more per year back into roads actually with the shorter bond. So from this, what I'm doing next is trying to find what is that sustainable level. I ran a model this morning. I didn't get it complete before the meeting, but cutting 400,000 out of annually out of the loss that's currently being allocated on average to roads. Almost gets us there. If you did it as a solid 400,000, not allocating for like inflation on road construction costs, you'd get there. But when you put in a 5% per year growth on road construction costs, it still gets wiped out at about year 10, and we'd be back in a deficit. Now we'd be a significantly less deficit than that 4 million, but so just to give a model kind of how the different bonding levels and the different terms would affect the budget. The amounts that I pulled out, so like the scenario C and scenario D, 163,280 is the asbestos abatement would come out of general fund, the cameras and security system would come out, and the fiber relocation between the two buildings. And then in scenario D, I added in the equipment for the new addition, like the furniture. I just added that in to get up to that 319 out of general fund. Gets us down to almost an even 2 million out of lost to bridge the gap. This doesn't factor in any savings that we may see with electrical coming back in and the rebid. We may see a little bit there. I'm not optimistic that we're going to see 400,000 difference, but we will, hopefully see something. So just to lay this out and kind of look at the out years of how it would affect Landon from funding capacity.
We heard last week that there's 200,000 roughly in contingency. This doesn't factor in.
Doesn't factor in not recognizing that.
Any potential overruns.
Correct. And
Beyond that.
or any savings coming back in at the end of construction either from contingency. So this is sticking to the number.
You've done a tremendous amount of work. You've done good work. You've brought clarity. I won't support the road department having that much less dollars. I think that our county road, I've worked for 13 and a half years here to make our road better. I believe my constituents frequently tell me that the roads are significantly better than they are. Corey, in your very first campaign speech, you talked about the importance of having
Keeping moving with the roads.
stable and great road conditions.
Yep.
To me, this project is not important enough to lose any momentum we have. And we know we have a lot more work to do on our roads. We know that they're not perfect and that they need the funding, and cutting the funding from roads in any measure is not supportable for me. So.
And I see you didn't use the 15-year one that they put out. You just used the 20-year.
On the 8.5.
Yeah.
I don't have that chart with me. I ran what the payments would be. It would be like 833 at 15-year. I didn't create a scenario with it. I can go back and do that, but then that totally exhausts any other use of lost. I was, trying to create scenarios that would still allow us to fund at some capacity the roads. I used a 2% appreciation factor on lost. Factoring in inflation, cost of spending would bring in more lost. That ebbs and flows. There's years where lost will drop just from economic conditions. But then I used a 5% on road construction costs to try to overweigh that and offset any ups and downs that we'd see in Lost.
I know that the cost of abandoning this potential project is significant. But ultimately, I hope that that's not the final consideration. I think that it's very important for us to keep the big picture in mind. Look what happened up in Floyd County. What if the same thing would happen here? I'm just not comfortable knowing that this project ballooned to 80% more than what it was as the original project, or stated project that it could be under. I think that we need to make a decision here, and I think that the decision is fairly clear. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, so you're leaning towards, not necessarily banning it, but going to the alternative, just minimal improvements.
Put up a new entryway and put up an elevator. And, of course the architects are gonna steer you away from that direction, because look at what profit there is in their life. They're gonna make a whole lot more money on a $13 million or $12 million project than they are on a $2 or $3 million project. But the fact is those are immediate needs. That elevator is an immediate need, and the entryway is about to fall off, so it's an immediate need.
To keep the current elevator functional while we were to construct, we'd have to move that location of that elevator, which will mean to keep access to the building from the elevator, you're going to lose offices, existing offices, to create new corridors to connect, and then you would backfill like where the shaft is now. But there'd still be a net loss of space, so we still have to add some space in the addition to account for those corridor losses of office space. So it's not as simple as just adding the elevator shaft.
I will agree with you there. It is nothing simple, especially when you're doing a remodel.
An old building.
So we got elevator, we got air handlers.
Scott's working through like what's salvageable from the air handler. If we go to a smaller space, obviously the cubic footage, would change drastically. So there will be some loss of dollars already appropriated there, where we're gonna have to reconfigure the air handler, whether we can salvage parts of it. It sounds like it's not a throwaway, it's modifying it at additional expense to make it work for a smaller space.
But at a significantly reduced expense than this as projected project. I'm sorry, I just can't. I don't believe our constituents want something like this, and they certainly, in this era of taxation, I think if we put this to a vote, we know what the answer would be.
So what I kind of hear is, we need to have an option of a courthouse remodel finance. So plus we need an option of pivot. So from a scenario A, B, C, or D, which one is your group kind of recommending?
I think the scenario D is the costs that we're contributing out of general fund are things that are directly attributable to the current building. The camera system needs, security system is a known need. The asbestos abatements, current building, anything we would do in this building, we would have to clean up that asbestos, do any remodel in those offices. And then the furniture is kind of an end of the project. Okay, you've got this new space, but you can't use it unless you put furniture in it. So like if you're gonna function, you need that. So those are how we justified moving those items over in there and pulling from some fund balance there to offset some lost spend down. And to me, that's the most palatable version of going through with this if we were to move forward, is to look at option D. And then the caveat is we need to go back and, okay, what is workable for Landon's 5-year plan? Like, how do we get into that and sustain where we're at, or what does the modification need to be? And that's the next conversation needs to happen.
So scenario D, while it becomes somewhat more short-term affordable, is it really truly comparing apples to apples with the original plan, with the original concept of the overall remodel?
We've still, we realize, we accept that we've lost some things in the redesign, like finishes. From the first design we turned down when we accepted phase 1, and we said, let's go back to the drawing board with phase 2. I mean, there's some finishes that we've removed, wall finishes, things like that in the meeting room. We've looked at some possible, keeping terrazzo, but maybe going to a less ornate terrazzo finish, like grids, things like that, versus borders. So there's been some things that have washed out in the redesign that, with inflation, have been, the savings has wiped out as we've delayed. So
Cost of the things that you just described under scenario D were in the original concept. They were in the original.
but we can't go back to the original concept now. That ship sailed 2 years ago.
That's when we should have killed this.
I was concerned back then when we moved forward and like we're getting backed into a corner when we accepted phase 1.
And I know you were, and I appreciate that, Cory.
And that's come to fruition here.
Again, I think our constituents expect us to make the right decision, and for me, the right decision is to just go with option F, or whatever we're gonna call it, for having what we absolutely need to do done, and don't do the actual total addition. I think I've beat the horse up, I'm not saying anymore.
I know conversations that Scott and I have had with Eric from ISG, moving on to a redesign will probably involve a new architecture firm as well. So.
Take a breather and then again move on. So. But now, we'll put Landon on the hot seat. What would this do if option D, we start pulling $584,000 out of lost?
Cut my lost funding in half. From a plan perspective, I've been intentionally pretty conservative with loss because I didn't know what this was going to do. I think for my long-range plan, I should have brought that. I think I was estimating about a $400,000 a year reduction in that anyway. So I kind of accounted for this possibility. Just changes what we'll do with our roads, I guess, is all it does.
And
We've got a fairly
you get into it in
comfortable-
28, like you've got about old lost, I think 314 carryover to 28 the way we're looking right now.
Yeah, we've got a fairly healthy balance in there. I don't even know what it is off the top of the head, but like I say, we've been pretty intentionally conservative, waiting to see what comes out of this. So,
So the old loss would abide us sometime, and
Have you factored in all of those projects that our constituents are clamoring for? I know you have one in your district, Cory, and I have one in mine where, we're gonna have to do something. Grand Avenue's gotta have something done. Ivanhoe from Denver to Waverly sometime is gonna have to be addressed. And would losing all those lost dollars affect and push those back even more years, or would that not have any impact?
likely, I have not run a scenario including, like an Ivanhoe project. Grand Avenue, depends what we would do there. It's probably a discussion we need to have this spring as we're getting closer.
We
do
had a good
have-
number of people in here
Yeah.
wanting something done,
And that's-
we said that,
That's the number one comment I got about this plan, was if anything's gonna happen there, so. Yeah, I mean, it would impact timeline of some of those things, certainly. It would either impact the timeline of those or the timeline of some of the other planned work we have.
And options.
To what extent, yeah, I don't know, I'd have to run a few scenarios, I've got that. I've got my plan run out to 2047 or something like that, so it's easy enough to plug those numbers in and see what they do with the change to the years and things, when things can fit in. I can run that and bring it next week, honestly.
No, we could look at what would as we come off, what year do you have Grand north of the fairground scheduled for? 29?
29, I think, 29 or 30. You know, and that would be impacted by our discussion from last week. 30 is what it's in right now.
What year do we come off the debt service levy for 911? 29?
Yes.
So there would be another option, less desirable, but
You know, and if we were able, the city was open to a project there, partnering with us, if we were able to get that funding we talked last week, that would reduce that burden on us significantly. Excuse me, save us 80% of the cost, I guess, so that would help significantly too.
that project out of everything, I think has the most merit to
Mhm.
potentially secure a grant.
Right.
I want to just point out that one of the areas that the state is looking at that counties could subsidize some of the property tax that they won't be receiving is their local option sales tax. If we go through with the model that we're looking at, which you've got for the next 15 years, that you've pretty much limited that ability. You're gonna have a little amount that you can give to secondary roads, and then the amount that you're gonna be paying to pay the bonds and the initial right off the top. So I just want you to keep in mind that when we did put this local option sales tax into place, we made sure that we had language that let us use it for basically any lawful county purpose. And I just wanna make sure that you guys are very much aware that you'd be, tying that up for over 15 years.
They'd be callable after,
Yes, this would be long enough that there
Yeah.
would be a callable period. Depending on what interest rates are at that time, it might not even look that appealing, but.
so once again, I mean, I hate to say this, but the subgroup needs to continue to on path D, but also, you know, like Dewey says, I think have a plan B ready.
I think Scott and I can identify like what the cost drivers of that would be based on what we've been given on the current project, you know, to at least get a budgetary number. I'll work that direction this week and see what drops off, like what is essentially lost from what we've done and you know, what it would take to put that project together. Very simple.
I do thank you, Corey, for putting all the, I know you're exhausting a lot of your free time, if you will, and you also are running a business, so you should be applauded there, and that.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, but. We have a 5-year plan in front of us, Mr. Chair.
Anything else? So now we'll go to 10 o'clock Landon's weekly update. Is there anything else? Actually, I'm sorry.
We can set the date next week. If you'd rather set the date so that I can get all this changes
Okay.
done. This next week is March.
Well, what date do you want it? We can set the
Okay,
date.
well, we're gonna go with, March 24th. I'll put it in the papers on March 10th, 11th, and 12th. It'll be March 24th. It has to be its own board meeting, So, whatever time you want, and then we'll just adjust everyone else accordingly. If you wanna do that meeting right at 9, start your other meeting at 10.
That sounds like a good deal.
I'll make that motion for March
Second.
24th.
Set the date and time for March 24th at 9 a.m. be the public hearing for the proposed property tax levy. We have a motion on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We've set the public hearing. So anything else on budget stuff?
No,
Okay, you're all okay.
gonna make it okay.
Landon,
Okay. Morning, what you have in front of you is our current 5-year plan, which gets submitted to the DOT. This is a draft version, just for some discussion here this morning. I guess we can start right away on the first page. I do have some maintenance stuff we can run through that's not in this plan, but we can do that after. Number 1 project there, subdivision paving year 4, that is Huber subdivision. Honestly, my plan here will be to move this to 2028. What we're fighting there is we're waiting on that DOT 218 project. We want to get that done before we're in there trying to fight through that and get this project done. So I'll probably bump that to 28 just based on their project scheduling. But that is out of lost funds. 300,000 was our budget for that. That was put together a couple of years ago, so we probably need to revisit that. Something along those lines.
Do you have an idea of something else to drop into 27, or are you just gonna punt on those dollars for a year?
We do have, what we've been looking at is T77 and C38 over here west of town. You've got the 1 mile from the city limits going west on C38, and then the 2 miles going north on T77. Going east by Cedar Lane there was, or Cedar Bend there was, or Cedar Lane, was done, I don't remember what year that was, 10 years ago or so, and the other section was not, so this would allow us to clean that up. It's a small project, 3 miles. It would be more than this 300 we had planned, but wouldn't be a huge project. So that's when we've looked at adding in, and actually we'd even talked about, instead of waiting for 27, pushing that in this year. Will require amendment to put it in FY 26, but we could get that done this summer since we're
That's the
pretty open.
one you were talking about doing that recycle on.
Yeah, that hot in place recycle. Yep, that would be that project. That would maybe even move into 2026. Continuing on down here, we've got the Ivanhoe Bridge road reconstruction. That'll actually fall off this. I put that in here just to make sure I talked about it. That's considered maintenance for DOT purposes, so we won't submit that. But that's kind of where we're at with planning right there. We don't have good budget numbers yet because it kind of depends on what the full scope of that project looks like in order to get that road reconstruction done. But that's planned currently for 2027, pending getting that design done with the city. Next one is a raised grant bridge, 615. That's on C33, just west of 63. That's through that raised grant, 100% federal aid. The one thing I will note that we may want to consider is the current plan with 615 there and 611 in 28. That would mean that 2 years in a row we have a bridge on C33 west of 63 being done. So you'd have 2 years in a row with summer construction on C33. Certainly not an ideal situation, but that also would make it much more likely that we don't end up getting one of those not done over the winter and having it closed for winter like we saw with C50. So that may be something we want to discuss, how we work through that scheduling, if we want to do it that way and have 2 summers in a row, or try and get them done on 1 summer and really just have to push. Because we certainly don't want that closed for winter, but closed 2 summers in a row isn't a great solution either. So.
Are we limited on conditioning the bid with construction window?
Yeah, I mean,
Business funds?
we could do, what I had thought through is we could move 615 back a year to with 611, mostly based on project timing. I don't believe 611 will be ready to go in 27, but we could move 615 back there, and we could do a completion date of October 15th, November 1, something like that. Now, it doesn't guarantee they'll get it done, but at least that way we would be reimbursed if they're not done by winter. That certainly wouldn't, it's not foolproof. There's still the possibility.
What is the timeline on, when you say summer, what would the closure likely be on?
Oh, one of these there, we don't have them sized yet, but they're probably gonna be 120, 140-foot slab bridges, so depending on the contractor, depending on working conditions, weather and all that, you're probably looking at 4 months. Now, if they're working at them concurrently, they could be doing work on both of these bridges concurrently is how we could get it done in the summer. Construction season, April to November, whatever you want to call it.
I would think we would get a better bid because of mobilization. I could see
Right.
one contractor coming in.
Yep.
And getting
To consider.
getting
Right.
it back open.
We just we can't get in another scenario where it's closed all winter.
Right. That was my big concern, is why when we discussed this schedule, we left them separate. We really don't want to deal with that. We also don't want to close 2 years in a row.
The good thing is looks to me like, especially 611,
Mm-hmm.
that detour, while not fabulous, is not
Yeah, it'd be a better one.
really that difficult.
Yep. So I can discuss that with our crew and see what we think about that, if there's a way to write those up so we feel pretty good about those getting done in 1 year. And if we would have one then to move into 27. And I can bring that back. Well, I'll have to bring this back at some point once we get it finalized, but
The 611 is definitely going to affect ethanol traffic on the Bremer Co-op.
Yeah,
That's going to be
right.
a big detriment.
yep. Okay, so I'll circle back with those after we have a chance to discuss schedule. Next one in 27 is 9-4. That is 240th there. Over there, kind of by the overpass. It is the one that is going to a large box culvert. That is submitted for the CHBP grant. We have not heard anything on that. I'm mildly concerned with the speed of our raised grant agreement. We've had that. We were supposed to have that agreement this summer. We still don't have it. If we look at a delay like that with these 2 CHBP bridges, because the next one in 27 is also a CHBP, it would get very difficult to bid those this fall like we're planning. So that's something we'll have to stay on top of. I know Senator Grassley's office just got involved with our raised grant due to the delays we've been seeing there. Fayette's already out to bid with a couple bridges on that grant with no raise agreement or no funding agreement yet. So that whole scenario is getting a little bit trying.
So on that box culvert, the 9-4, your best guess right now is it would be truly spring of calendar 27,
Yep.
finishing
Yep.
up.
We would,
Okay.
our plan with the 3 that are currently shown this year would be to let them in October, November of this fall.
Okay.
And then start right away next spring.
I had questions on that one. I think I told you that a couple weeks ago to
Oh,
town
yeah,
hall.
yep. The final project in 2027 is HMA paving V21. That is from Waverly city limits up to 188, 10 mile, almost 11 miles, I guess. That is funded 1/2 by STBG federal funding and 1/2 by our farm to market account. That'll be cold in place with 3 or 4 inches over, depending on the existing thickness. So similar project to what we've done on a lot of other asphalt roads. Then we move into some of our grant bridges again. 7-6 and 6-2 are both on gravel roads. In that raised grant, they would be let next fall and begin in spring of 2028. On the next page, 611 is that other one on C33. And I guess backing up real quick, those 2, 7-6 and 6-2, if we move 615 back, I would probably ask Calhoun Burns to push the work up on one of those 2 to move them to next year. That way we can spread this bridge work out, because we do have 8 bridges over the next 3 years, so that's going to be very trying for our inspection crews to keep up with all the documentation, especially on a federal aid project. So we would likely move one of those up. 611's that one on, that other one on C33 that we talked about. 824 is also currently shown in 2028. That is that pony truss on 210th over there by Viking Ave. It's our last remaining pony truss in service. We've got that one scheduled to go fall of 28. It's currently submitted for historical review. I haven't seen a response on that. Long story short, those old pony trusses are hit or miss, but they're kind of a hot button for the historical. If they find that it's the original pony truss from, I don't remember when that one was built, there's a decent chance that'll be considered historical. We haven't gotten a firm yes or no either way, but if it is a historical bridge, that would complicate that significantly, possibly to the point, as surprising as it is, that we would not be able to go to bid by next fall even. So it just totally depends on those findings, really. There's also some wetlands on that one, which we have to mitigate, which adds another layer. So that one's tentatively 2028 with the possibility. I would still think that we'd be able to go next fall, but there is the possibility there that we have some holdups. 2029.
At least you don't need to fish it out of the Cedar River.
That's true too, yeah.
Wasn't that one of your first projects?
Yeah, I started in February. It fell in the river in March. 817 is the next one. This is also on C33. That's the big one over the Wapsie. That's part of that RAISE grant again. It's listed in FY29 as part of that grant. Even though we don't have an agreement yet, they have said that the letting requirements will not change, so they have to be let no later than September of 2028. So our goal would be to let this one like in August of 2028 and then begin construction the following season. That is more than likely, with the size and scope of that bridge, going to be a multi-year project. So we don't want to start that one in July and have it closed for 2 winters or something like that. So
And the small one right next to it will be untouched, or?
Right.
That one's okay.
Yep. Yeah, but it'll just be the big one there. That one also, I'll remind us here, is required to have pedestrian accommodations. So that was part of our meeting the criteria for that grant, was agreeing to put pedestrian accommodations on one of them, since that one has public access on both sides with those conservation areas. That was the one we selected. Since that's, you know, out in the country, no trail nearby, I requested that be removed once we got the award, and I was told that absolutely had to be built. So that one is going to have some type of pedestrian accommodation on it. It will most likely just end up being used as a fishing platform, but we'll have the option if we want to extend the trail out there in the future.
Call it a sneak alley.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Intercog might not be all that disappointed.
Yeah.
'Cause, you know, that has always been discussed as a potential connection to
Right.
share the road south of Tripola.
Yeah. We've had a few questions on that since that detail's been out. My response has always been, you know, because that's kind of seen as a waste of money, my response has always been, I would rather waste $500,000 of federal money if it means they give us another $8 million. So.
Let me know how that works.
Right.
Well, there are people in the trail sector that wouldn't consider it a waste.
Yeah, no, and it would open up a possible
what you-
connection there, but kind of tongue in cheek when I say that. The other one that year is V14 from C33 up north to the tie-in at Horton there. That is planned as a PCC overlay, 6-inch overlay. What we would like to do there too is also apply for some additional funding that I don't have shown here that would allow us to do paved shoulders on that. TSIP funding, it's called, Traffic Safety Improvement Program, would turn that into quite the project up there from C33. It's already budgeted for $3 million, and we'd have an additional cost of those included in that, but that'd be a really nice road project. That would include fixing the S-curves there. They're not quite super elevated correctly. They're safe enough. I did drive them with a ball bank measuring system. I don't remember what the actual gauge is called, but They are safe for travel, but they're not quite to spec, so that will include some of that, redoing too.
They reoriented a little bit, or what do you mean?
Yeah, they're not elevated enough for what their spec says they should be. Now, when you drive them with that measuring device, again, I can't remember the name.
I feel like the north curves just don't seem like they have as
Yeah,
much banking
yeah.
into them.
They do meet, they are safe for high speeds, but they're not within spec, so that'll include re-elevating the outside of those two curves, specifically the north one.
That section of road has been problematic from the day we opened it up
Mhm.
after being a new road.
Yeah, my understanding, I did some digging on it, so that was macadam stone base with asphalt over. And I don't know if we didn't I don't recall the details, but I think we cut some corners on the base and our asphalt has
Well, and the
seen that.
original asphalt was not
Mhm.
very thick for a new road.
Right.
It was minimal. Somebody was minimalistic then.
Yeah, right.
I think it's finally stabilized, though. It seems like
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
rutting
I think
and
that was my big concern when we initially looked at a PCC. There was if we had a base issue that we're going to put this $3 million concrete overlay down, but
As tough
it
as
does
it
seem to have
may
stabilized.
seem, if you look back at the drawings, I think there were like 4-inch shoulders on that road back before
For that,
that road was so dangerous. You
Yeah.
couldn't even stop a car on
Oh,
that.
yeah.
It was,
let's see. I think we'll move into 2030 now. Final year of the plan. Here, this is where I stick kind of projects that we want to go in the plan, but aren't always sure. Although I think all three of these we're fairly certain will go forward. HMA paving C33. That is the final 4 miles east of 63. Around the new bridge that's going to go in. We didn't want to pave those before we did that bridge project, rip up a whole bunch of new pavement to do the approaches. So basically, as soon as we're done with that bridge project, we can move on that 4-mile stretch to finish that off. Grand Avenue paving, that is north of the city limits up to V21. Paving that, as we had discussed. We will have to have a public hearing for that project at some point. Just a note, we don't have to have it anytime soon, but before we go to letting with that, the DOT will require that before paving that one. And then bridge replacements, 316 is up there on the pinhook. It's a small bridge. I don't have the measurement on here. It's a small bridge, but just essentially getting out ahead of that one because that one is on a paved road, so we don't want to let that one fall too far before we replace that. So that's why that's on here.
It's a blacktop up in
just north of
Fredericksburg.
93.
Yep.
Okay.
South of the S curves, we go to Fredericksburg.
Yep, exactly. So with that, I guess the high note is the 5-year plan currently, $22.3 million. Of that, $2 million is in existing grant proposals. That's that CHBP grant that we're waiting to hear on. Let's see, $11 million of that is federal aid dollars, either through that RAISE grant or our HBP funding. On this plan for capital projects, only $250,000 is coming out of local dollars. Also, $4.5 million out of lost funds. The majority of that is that final year, both C33 and Grand Avenue are out of lost funds. Now that does not include some of the projects that are considered maintenance, mainly our seal coating projects we've been looking at. Those will come out of lost as well, but they're not included on this plan.
Can you give me a schedule on those? So I can
That's
tie
what
that
I
into
got noted
I'm-
right here.
Thank you.
So what we're looking at for the seal coats and other related maintenance, considered maintenance projects, we've got Midway North and tentatively Midway South scheduled for this year. I'm waiting to hear back from City of Denver on what we talked about last week. They were going to talk about that at their next council meeting and get back to me. We've got 250th that we talked about, that would be from 260th up there past the event center and stuff, right south of town here. That one is kind of similar to the Huber edition in that we're kind of waiting on the DOT project to finish that up. I've got it tentatively out in 2027, but the road that would connect that to 260th isn't even built yet. So we certainly got to wait on that part of the project. 2027 also has Killdeer. If we're going to do that one, we would want to do some grading this year to mitigate some of the hills there on the south end and improve those culverts or extend those culverts before we do a seal coat there.
So you think grade summer, seal coat next spring?
That would be my thought. 2027, we've also got the Ivanhoe Trail Bridge alignment. Once again, depending on kind of depend on the city with their bridge there. We can't do that before the bridge project moves forward. So if there are delays there, that would delay us.
Be able to determine how much property will have to be.
We are working through that right now. I should be getting something. I believe the city, their designer has the prelim plans done, or they were working on them. So I should have an idea of that fairly soon. But I'll have to follow up with the city on that. I don't remember. We just discussed it, but I don't remember what we had for a timeline on that. Another note I had was the Grand Avenue North project. I did discuss that with Justin over at the city last week. They are open to looking at that community funding project. Not many people willing to turn down free money, so if we can get some, they're willing to look at it. We'll probably have to have a meeting to what that would all entail at some point, figure out how to mesh. They already have prelim plans for that project. But figuring out how to mesh our projects and if we would need to add any considerations, like we talked, utilities, to make that more of a possibility for that. And then the only other thing I have noted is at some point we'll have to talk about our gravel road improvements, Grand Avenue like we talked and some of the other existing ones. I do have that. I sent it out a while ago. I put together a draft of a resolution that would kind of guide those decisions going forward, so we don't have to have the meeting every year and say what qualifies, what doesn't. But yeah, we'll have to sit down and go through that at some point and figure out how we want to work that out. And I'll send that out again just so we have a refresher.
That's where you do the counts and
Yep.
et cetera.
Yep, and specifically with Grand Avenue, I do have, I think I mentioned we'll be getting that counter from LTAP, so we'll do that this spring and see where they come in at compared to the DOT counts.
When is that coming in?
I said basically whenever they're ready to let it go in the spring, we're ready to have it, and he did say we're first on the list, so whenever they start sending them out in the spring, we'll get it. I think they typically wait till after the snow. I don't know, we'll have to circle back with, not Paul, but David on that one.
Ambitious plan with a lot of bridges.
Mm-hmm.
But we have 220 bridges in the county.
Yeah, actually, we just updated, so we've been going through and removing as many as we could and replacing with box culverts wherever it was available with the watershed. We're actually down to 195 that are considered bridges for federal bridge and structures purposes. We've still got 232 or something like that total. But
Of that
big chunk
195, how
those
many
are-
of them are rated is less than perfect?
I would have to allow, all of them are less than perfect, but rated as less than
Yeah, whatever that rating is.
legal loading. Yeah, I'd have to look. I know we've got 30, right around 30 of them that are poor condition. Not all of those are rated, surprisingly, and we have some that are not considered poor condition that have ratings. It just depends on where the defect is in the bridge. I would have to look. But right around 30.
So years ago, I believe that number was 60%. We were
Oh, really?
of that 230 number, that's 60%. Now, a lot of them might have been those little ones that were replaced by.
Yeah, and some of those
But-
little ones would be rated too.
But it was a high number of, I believe that it was simply stated as deficient back then.
Yep. Yep, that was the language up until structurally deficient was
Right.
the language up until they switched here a couple years ago to poor fare good.
There is a old, the reason I'm asking is an old, big, tall concrete embankment bridge out on the gravel road northwest of Sumner. Is that on a list to have something done at some point? There was a fatality there. One of my children's classmates was killed
Okay.
there years ago, and it just seems like a really dangerous rural bridge. It's
On which
really-
road? We've got one planned up there this year, but I'm struggling.
It's
I also don't
super,
know where my-
super narrow. It's just out there too.
Yeah, I'm not picturing it for some reason up there. Narrow high abutment bridge.
Maybe on 120th, going across that little stream.
The one on 120th is the one we have planned to do this year, if that's the one.
I don't know.
Hopefully
That'd
it
be
is.
awesome if it was. It's got great big, I mean, they're 6 foot tall, so
I bet it is. I bet we're talking about the same bridge,
It's
yeah.
super narrow.
Yep. I bet we're talking about the same one, yeah, that's planned to go this year. We actually just got the final materials in today, this morning, they were waiting outside the yard with the beams,
I
so.
would think you'd make a lot of farmers happy. 'Cause
Yeah.
I can't think of too many modern day farm equipment pieces that could even fit through that.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, Landon, thank you very much.
I got ahead of
What
myself,
else?
I do have one other thing. CFYP. No, I don't. Yes, I do. We are looking at possibly doing things a little different with our budget now that I submitted my budget. The truck that we had in for next year at 90,000, Andy found 2019 for 75,000. That kind of checks all our boxes. We do have that amount left in this year that we intended just to not use. My proposal would be that we purchase that this year and then don't use that 90,000 we had budgeted for next year. Would save us a little bit of money.
Coming from real basic, or?
I don't know that we had that specifically outlined, where it was coming from on that one. That was just out of our new equipment that we had proposed. We certainly could reduce that budget number though.
Work with Cassandra to get that cleaned up.
Okay.
I
So-
haven't yet this week, I can get it reduced for your FY 27. And then when we go to amend at some point this year, we get in your,
Yeah, we won't even need an amendment because we have that
Yeah,
left.
the in
So,
spending
yep,
authority.
yep,
Got
yep.
So the $90,000 truck was a brand new truck?
No, we would get we almost always get used. It's just, on those trucks, we don't
Just
find
wanted
value.
clarity there for
Yeah,
those
no.
watching, that there's anybody listening and watching would think that that would be totally crazy to.
Right, yeah. Give up a new truck for 15 to go
Right,
to 6 years
right.
old, yeah.
So-
No, and it would replace our one that has, I wish I would have noted, it's pretty close to 500,000 miles. It's
Just getting broke in.
Using oil, yeah. It's a 2005, but yeah. Now that we've started, the last, whatever it's been, 5 years that we've been hauling our own gravel, those things get a lot of miles. So it's pretty close to 500,000. I don't know if we've hit it yet.
Did you get a chance to talk to Jeff from Grundy about that new,
Skullberg?
yeah, the new dust control product?
Oh, that he brought up? No, I haven't circled back with them on that. The oil emulsion.
Right.
Yep. No, I was going to talk to him. I haven't called him yet though.
The company
Because they're getting them right out of Grundy Center.
Right
is
out
what
of
he
Grundy
said,
Center. and
Yeah.
If that works out, that might be a interesting option.
His one little phrase that concerned me on it when I asked why other people aren't using it, said they found it cost prohibitive.
No?
I don't know what that means, if it's significantly higher than chloride or they just don't want to do it at any cost, but yeah, I'll have to have some more discussion with him on that, what he's talking about there.
I wasn't privy to that part. of the
Yeah, I mentioned it to him
conversation.
off to the side after Incog there. That's what he said.
Great, thank you very much, Landon.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good agenda?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Move to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.